Okay, we're back. So the cover has been placed in the heat press. It was dried in the heat press, so now we're going to go ahead and separate the Hollytex. Now we've created some edges and some corners. So we're going to start over on the side here. And let's find a nice seam. Get in here and start wiggling our spatula through here. Everything seems to be coming up quite nicely. And you notice I'm just I'm not being real rough with it. I'm just kind of sawing it up, trying to get to this center section. I'm not going to create too much of a force to it. I just want this to be nice and gentle. Now we did create the edge and the top here, so I'm going to have to do those nice and gentle. So just kind of sawing from the inside out. And as I said during the previous segment, the wheat paste does not like to stick to the Hollytex. That's the reason we use the Hollytex. And I had a couple people ask me, where do you get the Hollytex? Well, first of all, let's spell it correctly, Hollytex, just like the plant, the holly at Christmas time. And there's several places that sell it. I get mine from a museum corporation. I'll put the link in my description for you. It's $9 per square yard, and it is reusable unless you get some sort of grease or solvent or something on it. I did throw some of mine out after this session because when I was cleaning this, I had to get the tape residue off. I used the Bestine, which is a solvent which does not mix well with anything else. So I just kind of left it. And that went into the bin, but at $9 a square yard, I think that's a fair price. There we go. All right. That's our first half. That's the worst half, actually. So you can see the spine has now been rebuilt. We do have, this is the downside to this. I had to seal this tear here. There's no way to do this without coloring it in, which I'm not going to do. We're not going to add ink and try to hide that. Okay, now for the front part here. Now you notice when I was doing the previous segment, after I put the Hollytex down, I was mashing it around. That is to make it smooth, because this is a non-woven fiber. There's no little bubbles or any defects like that. So I'm going to be gentle in through here, because this is where we had the pieces. So I had to replace the wasp's hand over here with a little teeny piece that was troublesome, but there we go. It's all done. I'll get through the top here. This is where we've rebuilt that top half of the book. Okay. And now for the final segment of the other rebuild. It's this edge. And now we are clear. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a straight edge, trim off all the excess. So far it looks pretty good. I mean, this is going to be a strange thing here. It's the correct thickness of the book. It's been pressed exactly the same thickness. So I'll take some measurements and we'll trim it up and see what it looks like. I mean, it may look strange, and we may not want to do it, and I'll just trim it all off. But there you have it. So all done. So let's go ahead and trim this up. Okay, so we're going to use a straight edge and a scalpel. My trusty number 23 scalpel. I'll come down and do all these corners first. Get the edge piece. I'm going to save this for last, because this is going to have to take some little bit of research on measurements so we get the exact dimensions that they should be. And I'm also wearing, my jeweler's goggles, not because I'm blind. Well, I am getting there, but no. These are great. I just ordered them off Amazon, and I'll tell you, I'm kind of have them as a crutch because I can really see really, really close up and very, very precision on how I do things. The repairs, the trimming, like what I'm doing right now. So what I'm going to do here for the time being is I'm going to make a diagonal cut until we figure out how much of this top we need to replace. So I'll just take it from here. Alright, so there you have it. The back cover is done. It's still a little bit wrinkly. That's okay. It's going to get rehumidified, and we're going to give it another solid hard press. All right, I'll go ahead and take some measurements off of another book, and we'll come back and decide how we're going to do this. Well, I was looking at this and taking measurements for the cut, and things weren't lining up. So I took, and this is my fault, I didn't do this before we even started this project, but I should have used my grid here, and I quickly discovered that this is squared up here, but you notice there's a gap starting to form here. So we lose approximately an 1/8 inch at the top, and it narrows down to nothing down here. So this edge also has been trimmed. So I'm going to go ahead and add a side to this. I did get a hold of another project, virtually the same area. This is 1964, this is 1965. So the covers should, if I put everything in the corner and line everything up right, yeah, we got a definite gap there. However, we have some issues, so I don't think I'm going to be able to use this Daredevil as a good tool for measuring. It looks like it's a little bit off on height, so the dimensions must have changed. Anyway, back to the drawing board. Well, after realizing that Daredevil from 1965 is not going to work as a template for the Avengers from 1963, I was able to dig through my collection and find a Tales of Suspense that was from the same month as the Avengers #4. So that worked out. Now, I didn't videotape that. It's just getting a little bit extraneous. But I do have all of the wraps here. They're all complete. Things are ready for reassembly. And what I wanted to talk about, if you remember from the very first video, when I disassembled the book, it had 2 sets of staples. I determined that one was original and the other 3 were later. And I want to cover that right now with you to show you the differences and how I found that out. Now here's an example of 2 of the different staples. I pulled 4 staples out of the book. The one on the top is an original staple, and you can see a couple of distinct things about it. The legs are not equal in length, and the other thing is that the tips that puncture the paper are very much different. The one on the left is a newer staple. You notice that it is pointed versus the older staple, which is squared off. Now, this is a manufacturing change over the years, and what happens is if you try to make your own staple or use a piece of wire to snip them off with a pair of side cutters, you are going to end up with that sharp bladed tip, which is something that we don't want. So I always try to fix the staple that I have or use a donor staple from a similar book. Now after all that, I did discover that one of the staples was indeed also an original staple. So these are the 2 staples that we ended up using. I straightened them out using the staple tool from Immaculate Comics. Thank you, Rick Morgan. What a great tool. It's very helpful in straightening staples out. But this is what I used to reassemble the book. You notice that the patina, the color of the staples, is very uniform and identical. It's got that nice brown, aged look to it. Now, I didn't videotape the reassembly process of the book. I've covered that in many other videos, and there's not that much to it. It's a matter of lining up everything and finding the proper staple holes and reinserting everything very carefully without tearing anything. This is not a difficult process, but you do have to be careful when you're doing it. After reassembly, the book was placed back in the humidity chamber and moisture was added to give it a little bit of pliability. That way we could create a new and correct spine the way it was originally meant to be. And then from there went again back into the humidity chamber for a little bit more moisture, and then we pressed it just one time for a final pressing. Multiple pressings for this book is really not going to do anything to improve the look. I think we've got it as far as it's going to go. Here it is. I've gone as far as I'm going to go with it. It was an interesting science experiment. So, got all the tape off, rebuilt the spine, which was completely disintegrated. You can see from the outer cracks and splits. But getting the tape residue off basically proved to be impossible. It's definitely reduced quite a bit, but yeah, it was a fun experiment. I would like to submit this, but the cover's been trimmed, so I think it's just going to get added to my my collection and just something to reference and look at. But everything came out really well. The spine's tight. Colors look nice. Overall, I'm pretty happy with everything. So, anyway, we're on to our next project, and that is the PEP Comics number 3. So I'll be working on that. This one's got a lot of the whole thing's split in half and more tape and getting a little bit better at it as I go, but that's all right. All right, until next time. If you enjoyed this video, click on the video screen because in it you're going to learn how to remove water stains from a comic book. And this particular book came back from CGC with a blue label, so please enjoy.